During the Kyiv offensive, every several hours our customers from military squads would ask us to send them information about the next territory, the next 10 kilometres, and then the next 10, and the next 10, and so on.
We could hear the Russian artillery on the edge of Kyiv. To drown out that sound, we cranked up the gangster rap we were listening to, and we looked at the music player and saw the rap was by a group called Griselda. And that's how we came up with the name.
The female of the species is more deadly than the male, Rudyard Kipling suggested. In wartime Ukraine, the exploits of a certain Griselda would seem to bear out that opinion. Last autumn, Griselda was in the vanguard when the Ukrainian army burst through Russian lines during the Kharkiv offensive, winning back hundreds of settlements and more than 10,000 square kilometers of occupied territory. She has also played a crucial role in the tracking, targeting, and elimination of at least 3 Russian army generals in long-range missile strikes. Hundreds of ordinary Russian soldiers gathered in a barracks were killed or wounded in another successful operation in which Griselda participated. But her superpowers can be used to save lives as well as take them. This summer, Griselda helped rescue hundreds of civilians who risk of drowning or starvation following Russia's destruction of the Kakhovka Dam. But who is Griselda? Or rather, what is Griselda? Griselda is the code name for an automated military data intelligence system that was developed and is being run by a hand-picked group of Ukrainian civilians with computer gaming software and other information technology backgrounds. Before the invasion, Griselda did not exist. It was set up in extremis to assist Ukraine's beleaguered armed forces strike faster, harder and further against the Russian invader. The project's co-founders, two 40-somethings called Alexei Tobolkin and Dmytro Shamrai, first met 14 years ago through their love of fantasy-themed board games. Now Griselda sees them play a daily game of life and death against the Russian military machine. Male cameraman Jamie Wiseman and I have been allowed access to the Griselda headquarters in Kyiv. We can now tell something of their remarkable story. Perhaps the most celebrated example of academics, eggheads and other unmilitary puzzle solvers being brought together for a wartime intelligence mission occurred at Bletchley Park in England during World War II. Bletchley Park is a Victorian mansion and estate in Buckinghamshire that was then home to the Government Code and Cipher School. Their speciality was SIGINT, Signals Intelligence, the interception and analysis of enemy communications traffic. With the outbreak of war, Bletchley Park's staff swelled from a few hundred to several thousand, mostly civilians, led by intellectual luminaries such as Alan Turing. They were able to crack the German Enigma and Lorenz codes, allowing the Allies to read Axis signals almost in real time and act accordingly. To assist this work, the Bletchley Park codebreakers built Colossus, now regarded as the world's first programmable electronic digital computer system. The resulting intelligence, codename Ultra, arguably shortened the duration of the conflict. The Griselda headquarters in Kyiv is no Bletchley Park, and Griselda herself is a very different creature from Colossus. But there is an undeniable historical, technical and motivational connection between Turing's pioneers and the occupants of the rather scruffy top-floor suite that Griselda calls home. The open-plan apartment with kitchen diner is devoid of decoration and a little untidy, as one might expect of a place where IT guys hang out. The only clues as to what happens here are the open laptops, a whiteboard covered in programming in Ukrainian, and the mantelpiece of the fireplace, on which are displayed a deactivated RPG warhead, a rocket launcher case, a gas mask, and a long needle bayonet. There are only 3 people in the room. 2 of them are wearing shorts, all are bearded and in stocking feet. Ukraine was already a centre of excellence for software development, particularly in the gaming sector. Boosteroid, the largest independent cloud gaming provider in the world, has its development team here in Ukraine. This spring, Bill Gates' tech leviathan Microsoft announced a 10-year agreement with the team that will bring games such as Call of Duty to the platform. The global smash hit first-person shooter Stalker series was also developed here. Alexei was part of that peacetime scene and ran his own IT company involved in a number of projects, including software development for a gaming firm, while Dmytro was a well-known social activist. They'd first met 14 years ago through analog board gaming. Here is Alexei and some friends playing a fantasy detective game called Eldritch Horror.
Это значит, у нас монстр-вампир. Если вы провалили проверку ту, не проходите проверку ту. Если вы потеряли здоровье в результате проверки силы, и этот монстр не побежден, он восстанавливает 2 здоровья. Ой-ой-ой. А еще и сила -2.
Да, ну, плотный.
Короче, я думаю, что я его буду своим заклинанием учить.
I noticed that there is a stack of similar board games on the otherwise empty bookshelves of the Griselda HQ.
Are you a geek?
I don't consider myself a geek. I don't have any technical education. I ride a motorcycle and I snowboard. I can't call myself a geek, but maybe some people might think otherwise.
The question is a little unfair. Alexei's skull is shaven and decorated with a large geometric tattoo. He helps target Russian soldiers for a living. He is not your average office IT guy. In the first week of the invasion, Alexei packed his family off to Western Europe and joined the army to fight what looked likely to be a last stand against overwhelming odds.
On the first day of the Russian invasion, I went to the recruitment centre. I went to join the army where I got my AK and I started to be a serviceman.
But almost at once, he began to get requests from the embattled authorities to provide his specialist IT help, not least from his board gaming friend Dmytro.
My friend Dima, who I met playing board games together, worked in Kyiv City Hall. He worked on different tasks. Some of those tasks were related to IT, Starlink, internet, computers, servers, and so on. He asked me to join them. Those were the days when you could join and leave the army much more easily than it should be.
How many days were you actually in uniform before you went back to civilian life?
Something like 10 days or 2 weeks. I don't remember. It was on those days when they understood that Kyiv would not fall. I'm definitely not as useful as a serviceman, so I agreed to join them.
Along with Dmytro, Alexei was put in charge of the team that would become the Griselda project.
They had already started to develop small applications, chatbots and so on. And then they found this problem, this huge problem. They saw that the solution for this problem would lead to great effectiveness for Ukraine's military operations.
What then was the huge problem? Because at that time, Ukraine faced so many. From the start of the invasion, she was outmatched by Russia by every military metric, possessing only a fraction of the manpower, tanks, aircraft, artillery, air defense, and electronic warfare capability that Putin's army had at its disposal. But there was another serious shortcoming. Imagine a 3,000-piece jigsaw puzzle being emptied onto a large table in front of you. You're told that in order to win a prize, you must complete the puzzle not in days or weeks, but minutes or seconds. There is a further challenge. Some of the pieces you need to finish the puzzle are laid out on other tables in neighbouring rooms. But the doors to those rooms are locked, and you don't yet have the keys. This scenario is analogous to the Ukrainian military's struggle at the start of the invasion to efficiently collect, analyse and act upon the millions of pieces of intelligence data that were coming in from a myriad different sources every day. Such information was being stored by a number of unintegrated computer programs, platforms or other standalone systems, or with different departments or formations in the field that had no means with which to share the knowledge. Sometimes the intel was not used at all. Battlefield situational analysis was being carried out by servicemen sorting documents manually and using office spreadsheet-style technology. Such work might take days to come to a useful conclusion, by which time the tactical situation could well have changed. Ukraine did not have that time to spare. And so the civilian super techies were called in.
How long after you finished being a soldier did the Griselda start to take shape? You think, this is what we're going to do, and this is how it could develop?
It developed really quickly because it happened at a time when we worked a lot. Mostly for 24 hours a day. All we did except sleeping and eating was trying to find the most efficient solution.
But why did they call their project Griselda?
It was in the first days of the invasion, and we could hear the Russian artillery on the edge of Kyiv. To drown out that sound, we cranked up the gangster rap we were listening to on our music player. At that moment, the question of what to call our new project was asked, and we looked at the music player and saw the rap was by a group called Griselda. And that's how we came up with the name.
Explain your personal motivation for developing this system. Your motivation.
My motivation? My motivation is the same as the general Ukrainian motivation. Everyone in Ukraine, or most people in Ukraine, want to be effective, want to make their own impact to the future victory.
Within a few weeks of this fraught conception, Griselda was born. Oleksandr used his whiteboard to explain how Griselda works. The first stage of the process is the collation of all available military intelligence. The sources can be broken down into 5 distinct categories. IMINT stands for imagery intelligence and includes pictorial data collected by satellites, drones or cameras of any kind. SIGINT, or signals intelligence, the Bletchley Park speciality, comes from all kinds of enemy communications interception. HUMINT, human intelligence. This is data provided by men or women on either side of the front lines, including secret agents and civilians in occupied territory. OSINT, this means open source intelligence, and is data collected from social media and internet websites. The final category, CyberInt, is the penetration of enemy databases. On its own, each source is useful, but can be one-dimensional. The Griselda platform automatically processes and integrates all the available data, including that which would be hidden from a manual search, to provide the most accurate 3-dimensional picture of what is happening on the ground at a given location. Oleksandr gives an example of how this could play out. A Ukrainian grandmother is living in a village in territory occupied by the Russian military. A Russian rocket launcher vehicle enters her village and is seen by Granny. Using an encrypted messaging app on her mobile phone, she relays her sighting and the location to her son on the other side of the front line. He in turn passes on the information to the Ukrainian military. A Griselda operator is now tasked to analyze Granny's report, and does so by drawing on all the latest intelligence information for that village and the surrounding area. The operator looks at satellite images, footage from drones, and indiscreet chatter on a Russian telegram channel used by frontline soldiers. The operator assesses Granny's report as being highly credible, and passes his analysis, including a Griselda visualization of the target location, back to the military. As a result, a suicide drone is launched for the Ukrainian frontline. It finds the rocket launcher at the edge of Granny's village and destroys it. The average time for a Griselda operator to be given such a task, type in the coordinates and produce their report or ticket is only 27 seconds, the Griselda team claims. That is the time it takes Griselda to complete that 3,000-piece jigsaw puzzle.
You can create all these tools which will collect this information into one data lake or one infrastructure. Then you increase the efficiency of this data from 2 to 100 times. It's easy.
Ukrainian battlefield units can access the Griselda matrix using logins and passwords. Unsurprisingly, the Russians have tried to do the same.
We face cyber attacks from the, I believe, 2nd month of our existence. Then no one knew about Griselda, but when the Russians learnt about Griselda, they tried to attack us. Unsuccessfully. They are not stupid guys. They are almost the same as us, only they don't have the same ideas or motivation as us.
The 2022 Kharkiv offensive, Ukraine's biggest battlefield success to date, was the first time that Griselda was used in a large-scale, fast-moving operation.
During the Kharkiv offensive, every several hours our customers from military squads would ask us to send them information about the next territory, the next 10 kilometers, and then the next 10, and the next 10, and so on.
He is less forthcoming on individual targeting operations, such as those against very senior Russian officers. According to the Ukrainians, 15 enemy generals and 1 admiral have been killed since the invasion. Griselda was involved in some of these operations, we have been told by defense sources.
We understand from sources that the Griselda project was important in the targeting and elimination of several very senior Russian officers.
I'm sorry, I cannot tell you details about our military operations.
We've also been told that the Griselda project was involved in a missile strike which eliminated several hundred Russian soldiers just behind the front line.
That's too sensitive information.
Griselda has also assisted in a number of humanitarian operations.
I can give you an example of how Griselda helped in a humanitarian operation. It is an interesting one. Volunteers from Kherson asked us to create an evacuation system in the aftermath of the Kakhovka Dam incident to save people and rescue victims who were stuck in first floors during the flood. It was extremely urgent because a lot of people were not only in their last days, but their last hours of life. We had to create a system extremely quickly. It took us only 10 hours to launch Griselda evacuation. We collected rescue requests from social media, from specific Telegram groups, from people who were trying to get attention for their situation or their families. We developed a bot to collect structural data, and then created a tool to put all the information from these incoming sources in one place. Then we created a system for operators to filter useful data from all this incoming information, without duplicates, without unnecessary information, without everything that would waste time for rescuers. The rescuers don't have the time or capacity to understand if the rescue requests have already been resolved or not, or if they are true requests or not. How can you prioritize those requests? Because saving a dog is important, but saving 25 old people stuck on the first floor in a building is much more important than saving a dog.
The app was involved in more than 800 rescues. Alexei says the Griselda platform can be put to any number of complex tasks far beyond warfighting. The team is now looking for investors and partners from friendly countries. It already has its own website and Latin motto, which translates as, "Your grandsons will gather your apples." In other words, Griselda's descendants will enjoy the fruits of their labours. But for the moment, its core customers remain the military. Sometimes they drop by the modest headquarters for a chat, as they did while we were there.
We have visitors. Nikita. Great. We have a customer
Okay.
here. Okay, I got it.
Switch it off.